You can now make online payments to University of Moratuwa via GovPay.
Rising Indo-Pakistan tensions and their implications on South Asia, a Sri Lankan perspective, a discussion organised by the Centre for Law and Security Studies was recently held in Colombo.
The recent incident in Pahalgam signifies a tragic loss of life. Going beyond that, we can see that there is a strategic shift in the conflict in Kashmir. When you take a look at the militancy in Kashmir, there are over a dozen militant groups that have been operating over the years. These groups consistently manage to evolve. They manage to remain resilient despite loss of territory, loss of leaders. We cannot deny the fact that the ISIS narrative of building a pan-Islamist caliphate resonates amongst the vulnerable youth in Kashmir, those who are vulnerable to radicalization. Then we will see an increase in homegrown terrorism and lone wolf type attacks. And some of these attacks is not centered only in India or Pakistan. It will be beyond these borders. There will be cooperation within regional terrorist groups to conduct combined operations. And there will be also the use of hybrid warfare and hybrid terrorism.
Every country in this region, the Sri Lankan strategic experts, Nepali experts, Maldivian experts, everybody was like, we should get in and we should try mediating between India and Pakistan. The idea that either India or Pakistan would want bankrupt dots on the map to be mediators between them, I mean, I find it quite laughable. I would say perhaps in the 70s we had some kind of diplomatic cloud where we could have played some meaningful role. In 2025, it's a very different world. SARC is not coming back. SARC is dead. It's a corpse.
Sri Lanka was set to face a tariff of 44%. There's obviously going to be a huge impact on Sri Lanka. 25% of Sri Lanka's exports and about 40% of Sri Lanka's apparel exports go to the US. So one of the workarounds that were being explored, whether Sri Lanka could actually reroute its exports to the US via a country like India, which would face lower tariffs. If there was an escalation of the situation in India and Pakistan, this would not be possible. And also this could be a completely moot point if Donald Trump decides to rescind his tariff policy, in which case none of this would matter anyway.
A panel discussion on the topic was also held.
The evolving nature of extremism, the spread of terrorism, and Pakistan's role here. I'd like to ask you about the impact of the situation on Sri Lanka. How do you think Sri Lanka can engage in not just the regional intelligence agencies, also safeguarding our borders with the growing impact of extremist elements?
The current form of Islamist or transnational terrorism does not operate within a particular center of gravity. If you look at the online space, that is where groups such as ISIS gain their strength from. Or if you look at inspired networks that are inspired by ISIS ideology, where they pledge allegiance and become either inspired network or a particular cell for that particular group. So even if you look at the Sri Lankan context, we saw how Zaharan and his group, basically how it transitioned from its local roots by adopting a transnational ideology.
Sri Lanka were to lean more towards either India or Pakistan, now given our tendency to have more benefit from India's economic growth. With US tariffs now, we're facing multiple challenges internationally with supply chains disrupted and more wars in the world implicating a small state as Sri Lanka. How do you think we must really restore our defense alliances?
Over the last 6 or 7 years, we've stopped touting that as well because of other international pressures. Our only hope is to hope for the generosity of the larger states and hope that they see something of value in us, which we can then fulfill.
Our industries, where should we look to, if not for the region?
There's very little we can do in terms of impacting on global wars or global tensions, but what we can do as a country is really fix our side of things. Now, if you take the Liberation Day tariffs, we are looking at it in a completely reactionary manner. Several decades, our export basket has remained pretty much the same. We still export the same things to the same places. So what we can do is put our ducks in a row. Obviously, there's very little we can do to influence. We can fix our side of things. We have better reserves, better buffers to actually face these kinds of global shocks.